Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm checking out two new brushed micros from Eachine. These are the EX100 and the EX105. Now these are both the DSM2 version, but you can get it with the Fly Sky receiver and also the Free Sky receiver. So let's take a look at what you get in the box, starting off with the EX100. So it comes in a box similar to what we are used to with these brushed micros. First of all, we have got a spare set of propellers here. They look like the Hubsan style propellers. Just going to lift the quadcopter out here. And it's in a dead cat configuration. It looks like that we have the Eachine EF01 camera on the front, decased, which is really good because this camera came out well on the JJ Pro T1 and T2 quadcopter. Now we have the DSM2 receiver in there. Supposedly it supports DSMX as well. I will have to try that. It's got the SP Racing F3 Evo board, but it's a different colour, this one. It's blue, so I think it's a slightly different board than before. I'm also looking at where the camera connects into it, and it looks like rather than it going directly to the battery, it's got a regulator on board, so that'll be interesting to see how that performs. Of course, we have these 8mm brushed motors, the same as before, and I hear they are the same powerful ones as the QX95, so I'll have to check that out. As for the frame, it looks fairly flimsy. The carbon is really thin, so I'll have to see how durable it is. Just looking underneath here, and we have got some protectors for the motors. These little foam pads, I'll have to see if they stay on, because usually it's notorious for these sort of things to fall off while flying them. I can also see that we have some sticky foam underneath here as well, which is tying the wires of the motors up underneath, which is quite interesting. So that is the EX100. Let's have a look what else we get in this package. So it looks like we've got a charger for the battery, we have got a battery strap, which is fantastic, and some Velcro in there too. Doesn't look like there is a prop remover, and we've only got one battery in here. Oh, this is stuck in here. So it is a 600 milliamp battery. It's the same as the batteries in all of these brushed micros, except it's got a sticker on it. So straight away, I'm not seeing any spare motors like you get with the QX95. I can't see a prop remover, and only the one battery. However, it's really good that it's got this camera on it, because I know it to be a good camera, and if it's got those powerful motors on it, then this could be a real contender. So the camera is non-adjustable. It looks like it's stuck in there good. Oh, we've got a sticky pad underneath there, so I guess you could remove it. Is that some glue at the top I can see there? Yeah, it looks like it's, yes, it's glued in at the top there. So that's going to put some pressure on this cloverleaf antenna up the top here. But one good thing about this one, at least, is the battery can sit on the top there. That's really cool. It's the first micro that I've seen that you can really do that on. So that's really nice that that can sit up there. It'd have been nice if there was a band going around there. I think that would have been easier than this battery strap that they have provided, but I'll have to see how that performs. So let's just stick all this back for now and check out the difference between this and the 105. Just move that out of the way. So this is the 105, and same sort of thing. We got the propellers here, Hubsan propellers again, it's Hubsan style anyway. They look slightly more matte than Hubsan propellers, so I'll have to see how they perform. Exactly the same goodies in this bag here. Don't think there's any difference here at all actually. So battery strap, charger, Same battery there. Lift this one out. So this is the 105. So slightly bigger frame. It's an X frame, this one, instead of a dead cat. Slightly wider. Again, it looks like the battery will fit on the top there, so that's good. We have got, looks like thicker standoffs there, but the arms about the same thickness. The camera is the same again, the EF01. And again, it looks to be glued in here. So this is a 40 channel camera. It's got a built-in VTX, same as the other one. It's 800 TV lines. And as I mentioned, it was on the JJ Pro T1 and T2, and the clarity and sharpness was fantastic, so I'm expecting the same results out of this one. And again, it's very similar. We've got these foam pads underneath that are dealing with the wires here, and foam underneath here again. So I guess the only thing with this one is that it is a slightly bigger frame. Now both of these frames will fit the rolling spider props, but I'm first of all going to try them out with the stock propellers. And again, if these have the powerful motors on them, then we might not need those rolling spider propellers. Now one thing that I noticed is that because this is an X frame, the camera is slightly recessed backwards, so you are going to get more props in shot with this one than the other one. Let's just compare the two there. So you can see dead cat configuration has the motors further forward. I think you may get some slight props in shot there, but not as bad as this one. So what we need to do next is weigh them and also get them bound. Now these receivers do not have a bind button on them, but you can short out some pins on the flight controller here. I'm not going to do that. I don't like the idea of that. Instead, I'm going to go into clean flight and use the bind command and try the different types of commands, and we'll take a look at that. But let's see how much these weigh next. So starting off with the EX100, let's see how much that weighs. So we're looking at 41 grams there. And then the 105, now I have to see if I can balance this so that it reads correctly. And that one is 41.4. Yep, 41.4. So this one is slightly heavier, however, they are both within the tolerance that I would expect from a brushed micro quad. I always say the benchmark is the H107D, which is the very first FPV micro, and that weighs 40 grams. So these offer more features than that. So the next thing that we need to do is plug them into clean flight, but before I do that, I just want to show you the control setup that I'm going to be using for both of them. So for control, I'm going to be using my FreeSky Taranis with an orangerx module in the back of it that supports DSM2 and DSM-X. I also use a Luminaire battery to power that. And then these are my Fatsharks Dominator V2, so not the HD model, they don't sell them anymore. But I have got a upgraded DVR in there, so it's got the super cap. So if you disconnect the battery, you don't lose your DVR footage, and this is the DVR that I'm going to be using to record the video of these quadcopters. I've got diopters in there, I've got the upgraded battery as well. I've got the Fatsharks diversity receiver in there. This is an Ionway SMA antenna, and then the Menace RC Invader patch antenna there on the other diversity output, or input should I say, on there. So before we get this into clean flight, I need to set up a model on this, so let's go ahead and do that.
Welcome to Taranis. Switch warning.
It says running OpenTX 2.1, I believe. So I need to go to menu and let's create a new model from scratch. Why not? So I always bypass the wizard and page over, and then let's change the name to the EX100. So now I'm going to select a model image. By the way, I usually just copy these models and change them, but I thought I would just show you what I do to set up a new model if you were doing this for the first time. I usually select the TBS Discovery icon rather than make my own or go and load any custom ones. It's just a logo that I know is a quadcopter. Okay, so TBS Discovery, and I'm going to go to the bottom here, and where it says external RF, I'm going to switch that on. So PPM, channels 1 to 8, we don't really need any more than that. So we do have some options here, DSM2. I'm going to leave it under PPM. Okay, so we don't need to bind anything here, as this is if it was using the internal RF, but it's not going to do that, so I'm going to page over now to the inputs. So you're given TAER, throttle, aileron, elevator, and rudder, so I need a mode switch and an arming switch, so I'm going to set that up on channel 5. I'm going to call it mode. Just long press enter to get a capital. And then I'm going to go to source and select the switch, so press enter and I'm going to have it on this switch up here. You just have to select it and it will change. So if I press exit now, we then need to put that over in the mixer or output, so I just usually go to M. Because I'm lazy, I don't like to type mode twice, so enter, and then if we exit out of there, you can see that it's linked that up. I'm going to long press page to go back to the inputs, and I'm going to create a arm, so long press for the A, and then scroll down to the source, and I'm going to have this on my 2 position switch here. So again, just select it and it automatically selects it, so I'm going to exit out of there now, then page over to the mixer and just select A for arm, and that's it. So I'm also going to go into the failsafe mode and set it to no pulses. Okay, so what I'm going to do there is, because we have got 2 of these models, I'm going to go over to the menu here and I'm going to long press enter and then copy model and go to the one underneath there and then select model.
Switch warning.
We got the switches on there. I'm going to page over and just change the name to the EX105, and that should be fairly easy. Okay, so that's both of the models set up. I'm going to now take one of them and go into CleanFlight and see what's up there. So here we are in CleanFlight. I have got the EX100 connected to the computer via its USB lead. So the receiver does power from the USB lead, which is nice. So it says COM12 up here, so I'm going to connect to it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go over to the CLI and type in version. So that's interesting, it's the SP Racing F3 and not the F3 Evo, so that's important if I'm going to flash Betaflight, because the QX series had the F3 Evo, and if we flash that version to this board then it's not going to work. So the next thing I want to do is check out the modes tab, and there's no mode set up, so if you are looking to get this working out of the box without connecting to CleanFlight, you're going to have to arm the quadcopter by using the rudder, and you're not going to have any mode, so it's going to be in acro all of the time. So let's go over to the receiver tab next and see what it's got set up. So it's set up for Spectrum here and RX serial, which is correct. Let's just go over to the ports here, and we've got the serial RX and the UART3. Again, that's important to note if we are wanting to connect to it via Betaflight later. So I'm not going to go through any of the other tabs. What I'm going to do is bind the receiver. So we have these two bind commands here. So for DSMX it's bind number 7, and DSM2 it's bind number 3. So I'm going to try DSMX first because that's the superior protocol. However, it does just state DSM2 on the website, so it could break it. So let's see what happens. So if I go into the CLI command here and then paste that into there and press save, very important that you type save, it's going to reboot. And then I'm going to disconnect the quadcopter from the USB and plug it back in. And now I'm going to turn the Taranis on while holding down the bind button of the module. And I should get a solid light on the receiver, that's what I'm looking for. So I got the solid light, let's go and connect. And then let's go into the receiver tab. Yes, something doesn't look correct there. So it looks to me, yeah, it's frozen. It looks to me like DSMX isn't supported. So let's go ahead and try DSM2. So I'll just copy this one and then go into the CLI command again and paste this and then save. So it's going to reboot there. So now again, unplug the quadcopter from the USB and back in. And I didn't turn the transmitter off, I hope that didn't cause a problem.
Welcome to Taranis.
Turning it back on with the bind button pressed in. And I'm looking for a solid light on the receiver again. Solid light, let's go and connect and check out the receiver. And there we go. Throttle, roll, pitch, and yaw. So it does look like that this one doesn't support DSMX. So if you've got an old transmitter with the DSM2 protocol, then that will work. But I believe some of the newer Spectrum models have AX DSM2. So that's how you get it to bind anyways, using this bind command here, and it does not support DSMX as far as I can see. So if you are wanting to stay in clean flight, then to set the modes up here you need to add a range, and I've set this up on the AUX2, so I need to move that over to this way here. If I want to add angle mode there, I want to move this over here. It's on the AUX1 horizon into the second position, and then acro, and then of course you need to save that. Let's have a look at some of the other options here. So the min throttle, that looks a little bit low to me if you want the motors to arm and spin. So do not spin motors when armed is selected anyways, but I would unselect that and then change the min throttle to about 170, something like that. Interesting that the max throttle is now set at 2000 standard on here, so I'd probably set it to something like that. Nothing else turned on here, so you're probably ready to go. However, I don't like to use clean flight, I like to use Betaflight, so let's see if I can flash it to it. So I'm going to disconnect this here and come out of it, minimize that, and I've got Betaflight open here. So I'm going to go into the firmware flasher and select SP Racing F3. It's already selected from a previous build. I'm going to select version 3.01, baud rate 256000. And let's see if this works first of all. So I'm going to select load firmware online and then flash firmware, and it looks like it's doing it without any driver issues, so that's good. So programming successful. I should be able to connect to it here, and the first thing I'm going to do is calibrate the accelerometer. So let's put the quad on a flat surface. Looks like it's quite a bit out there, so calibrate accelerometer, and this should level out there. And under ports I'm going to need to select the serial RX on UART3 for the receiver, so it will ask for a reboot to do that. So that's ready. So under configuration here we need to change this to brushed, otherwise the motors will spin up when we plug the battery in. Let's see what we've got here. Don't spin the motors when armed. That's turned off as standard. That's good. RX PPM is wrong. It needs to be RX serial there. And let's see if I need any of this information changed. I don't think so. Might need to change this to 2048. It's usually reversed in Betaflight for DSM2, so I can try that out. Is there anything else I need to change? Min throttle's probably about right there at 1070. Let's do save and reboot. Okay, let's go into PID tuning, and already I can see that there's some kind of control here because the quadcopter is moving around, so we'll check that out in a bit, but I'm just going to put some stock PIDs in here that I know work quite well, which is 0.6 on the P, and I usually like to keep them the same, 7 on the yaw, and 4.5 on the I, and 4.5 down here again, and the D I'm going to shift right up to 0.6 as well. It usually works quite well. People always say, you use too much D, it's going to burn your motors out. No, the motors don't get warm, and it flies really nicely, so just my opinion. You can set your D to whatever you like. That's how I like to fly. And then the Super 8 at 0.8 for all of them, 0.8, 0.8, and an RC Expo at 0. So I'm gonna save that. Now the receiver tab, something's going on here. What's happening? It's just got the wrong channel map. So we need to change that to the spectrum map here, and then save. And then something's gone wrong there. Let's go to the other tab here. I think I might need to bind it again. Let's just try this setting here. Let's go over to the receiver tab, and there we go. So that's fine. It just needed to have the other setting there, 1024 for DSM2. It seems to be really random which one to pick, which one works. Sometimes I've picked DSM2 and this one works, and DSM2, this one works. Just switch them around until you get something that looks like it's working. So I've got throttle there, roll there, pitch there, and yaw there. So that is correct. Next I'm going to, well, I'll save that, but I don't think anything changed there. I'm going to go onto modes here and set up an arming switch, so that's going to be on the AUX 2, the same as before. So move that over to there. So when I flip the switch it goes over here, that's the 2 position switch. Air mode I'm going to leave off. Angle mode, so that needs to go there, so the 3 position switch I set up. And then horizon, which is in the middle, and then acro, and that's all of my modes. So I'm going to enable expert mode so I can go into the failsafe here and just make sure it's set to drop, which it is, so no real need to mess about with that. Obviously you might want to test that it works before you go flying, and I will do that. So I think that is pretty much everything. So speaking of flying, let's go and see how they fly. I'm going to put both of the same settings on both of these quadcopters and then compare the two. So I just went to fly the 105 and watch what happens when I arm it. All of the propellers fly off. This is really sad, but just watch this. They are just so loose. That one's not too bad, but oh, that is such a shame. I'm going to have to switch out the propellers with something else. Same with this one. You just can pull off by the hand and just arm it. Look at that. That one doesn't even go on. So I think it's a problem with the propellers, luckily, not with the motor. So I'm going to have to switch out the propellers. Another thing I noticed is the battery on the 105 doesn't fit on the top. The propellers get in the way, so that one you're gonna have to put underneath, but that's fine, it fits underneath. But oh, such a shame with the propellers. Let's see what I can stick on there instead. So I did actually manage to find a good set of propellers in the spare propellers that they give you, but it's such a shame, and I'm not sure how long these are gonna last, but they won't pull off by hand anymore. So let's go and see how they perform. So starting off with the EX105, and I'm doing my usual test. The first one is a punch out, so let's have a look at that. Now, I wasn't as impressed with this one as I was the QX95. However, it's a bit unfair because it's 17 mile per hour winds today, and that's definitely affecting the performance of this. I do think it's got the same setup as the QX95, but it's hard to tell in these crazy wind conditions, so I'm gonna have to give it a little bit of leeway for that. However, I cannot give it leeway for the propellers. Just watch this. That's the stock propeller flying off, smashing up all the other propellers and snapping them, and also destroying the antenna. So I switch over to Hubsan propellers. This is the H107D Hubsan propeller, and it's much better. It stays on the motor, no problem, no matter how much throttle you give it. Now you'll notice I've put the red propellers at the front, and this is because I wanted to see how much propeller you got in shot. And it's not too bad considering it's an X-frame. It doesn't completely destroy your view at all. And if you put some white propellers on the front, then you probably wouldn't see them at all. But I just wanted to see how much they would get in shot. Now, the tune of this isn't perfect. I definitely need to spend more time tuning it, but it's really hard to tune a quadcopter in 17 mile per hour winds. So it wasn't falling out of the sky, so I was pretty happy with that. Now you'll also notice that I'm not flying far away from myself, and that is because in the winter this field becomes almost like a swamp, even with wellies on. So one thing you'll notice around here is I'm getting a lot of breakup, and that is just because that antenna got absolutely smashed up. I tried to bend it back the best I could, but it's never been the same after that crash, and that is a problem with these micros using these cloverleaf antennas. They are susceptible to being bent in a crash, and that happened. It didn't happen with the 100 that I'm going to fly next, so you'll be able to see how it performs with a non-smashed up antenna. Although the punch wasn't too bad there. And I've spotted this dog on the field, and what I thought was quite interesting is he didn't recognize it at all. Either it doesn't bother him, this sort of thing, or because it's that small, he didn't see it, or he's deaf, or the wind noise was shielding it. I don't know, but usually dogs go absolutely crazy for these quadcopters, and he wasn't fussed by it at all. Now the flight time, you're going to get about 5 to 6 minutes, same as all of these other brushed micros using this battery setup. But I didn't do a full flight with it because it was so cold out there and horrible. So I come in for a landing in a minute, and I go and check out the EX100. Well, yeah, not too bad this one. I'm enjoying flying it as much as I can in these weather conditions, and it's performing well. The camera, just as I thought, performs well. So let's come in for a landing and check out the EX100 and see how that compares. Not a bad landing either. So the first thing that you notice with the EX100 is no props in shot at all. So that is the first bonus with this one. But I wasn't as impressed with the punch out on this. Again, it could have just been the weather, but it seemed really random the amount of power that I was getting. And it could just be me, but I think the 105 just performs a little bit better. It's certainly easier to tune. I've always found it difficult tuning dead cats. Now, this isn't like the T1 that I reviewed a few videos back, in that the motors are evenly spaced. With the T1, the motors were closer together at the back and it kept falling out the sky. That is not the case with this one. And it was a little bit more enjoyable flying it. And you can see the reception on the video is much better because the antenna isn't smashed up. Again, just keeping it close in to me so I don't have to do a horrible soggy walk across the field. But, you know, these are really good for 120 meters, these cameras, 25 milliwatts, so you don't need to worry about that. I have reviewed this camera separately on other quadcopters and it's flown right to the edge of the field, so no need to worry about that. So now I'm going to fly behind me, and you will get some breakup because I'm away from all of the antennas, but it's nowhere near as bad as the one with the smashed antenna, so that performs really well. Really struggling to do proximity in this horrible wind, but I thought I'd have a go at it anyways. I think I'm going to be flying these ones indoors mostly in the winter, but I wanted to take it outside to show the power, because you can't really see the power of these indoors, and I think what people are after is a brushed micro that performs like the QX95 but has a decent camera, and I think any of these two will be the case, because you know that camera is fantastic. It's sharp and clear. It's dusk here at the moment and it's still picking up all the colors and it's still sharp. It's not going blurry with the lower light, so yeah, impressed with that, and impressed with both of these, really. Can't complain about either of them. So I'm just gonna fly around the field a little bit more. You can see there that the camera's adjusting to the changing light conditions pretty well as it gets lighter and darker as the camera turns around. It's really good at that. Signal's really good on the camera, a little bit of breakup, but nothing too bad. So there you go, that is my review of the Eachine EX100 and EX105. I hope you found this video useful when deciding which brushed micro to buy for the horrible winter conditions. I want to thank Banggood for sending these items in for review. I would not be able to check them out if they had not done that. I'll put a link in the description to either of them if you wish to purchase them. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.